Hi, Norm.
Hello, Mario.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Cold, but okay.
You said you're
Cold.
you're cold?
Yeah,
A little hot tea.
yeah. The good shelf.
Ariel, what page are we on?
253.
You know,
Does Ernie have the new copies yet?
You should get them because we're gonna finish today. He says he ordered them. I don't know if he got them.
No, well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Hi, Bernie.
Hello, good evening, Mario. How are you?
Good. And you?
Fine, thank you. All good.
Good. Hi, Harold.
Hey, guys.
Hey there.
Hello. Uh, were we holding the page?
253. This is the end of this.
I'm running out of pages. Okay, 253.
Yeah. I hope he got the new one.
Right.
No, no, where is Ernie? Hmm. You guys hear the comments that AOC made?
Today, what'd you say?
Oh, that Jesus was a Palestinian.
Oh, yeah. idiot.
Yeah, and he suffered the same persecution as the poor Gazans.
Oh, God.
She's, I mean,
She's, yeah, a piece of work.
she's an idiot on top of everything. Okay. Right.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Ernie, before you start, what about volume 15?
They have not arrived. I've ordered it,
Hmm?
and I'm surprised they haven't arrived yet because I sent in the order 2 weeks ago. I'll let everyone know when it arrives.
Okay, because today we finished this one.
Bruce, I sent you last week. Look at your text. Don't hold it, I remember.
Not realizing.
Because of the Red Sea.
You have to get it from a lot of different places.
Okay. I'm not trying to stop you, but here it is twice. There's a new. There's a new restaurant.
Here?
We haven't been there.
Page 253.
Mm-hmm.
Look it up.
The conceptual underpinnings of the Tufel status. We started last week with the concept of Iker and Tufel, what we consider primary and what is secondary. We went through a careful analysis of that. And let us conclude our study of the subject of Iker v'Tufel with the following analytical question. When one recites a bracha on the Ikar food, does this render the Tufel food entirely exempt from the obligation to recite a bracha? Or does the Tufel still require a bracha, but it receives the bracha of the Ikar food? Perhaps one can answer the question based on the Gemara in source 1, with which we began the Shia. According to the Gemara, the case in the Mishnah of Ikar v'Tufel is where one eats fruits of Genosar and then eats salty food to counteract their sweetness, followed by bread eaten to counteract the taste of the salty food. That was Tosfos's explanation. Tosfos asks that if the salty food is eaten only in response to the fruits, and the bread is eaten in response to the salty food, then the fruits should constitute the Iker. If so, one should recite a bracha only on the fruit. B'ochlei peros genis arshanu, says Tosfos, shahamaliach Iker, shu bal hashiv halev shenechlash ne'metikot haper. The salted food becomes primary in the sense that the heart weakened because of how sweet the fruit was. V'hapat shla'achrav tafel, and the bread that comes after the salty fish is certainly secondary. Ve'enu ba'ala b'shil hamaliach. The bread was only eaten sort of along with the herring. In Tomar Peros Havi Iker, in this analysis, comes out that the fruit is primary. Umaliach tafel, the salty fish was secondary. The liver chala peres for lifter kulu. says Tosfos, say a boy eitz, which is the bracha on the ikr, and that should cover everything. Yesh lomar, so he responds by saying, B'shasha ochal peres genesar, lo hayasham adayim aliach, upas. When he ate the fruit, he didn't know that he's going to need to eat the salted fish or the bread. He didn't know that he would sort of suffer a weak spell because of how sweet the fruit was. Based on this, it seems from Tosfos' answer that if the tofel was not present when one recited the bracha on the ikr, one must recite a new bracha on both foods. For this reason, the bracha reciting the fruits of Genesar does not exempt the salted food or the bread. And this indicates that the tofel food does indeed require a bracha, but it's exempted to the bracha of the ikr. The Chazon Ish arrived at the same conclusion. Ela Perusha. Chazon Ish passed away in 1953. So Chazon Ish is one of the more contemporary poskim that we rely on. Ela Perusho, Shatofel ain't sarch bracha didei. The tofel doesn't require its own bracha. Ela tzarich atah birchas ha'ikr. It needs the bracha that was recited on the primary food. Vavi atai ikr v'atofel birchoseim shavos. And therefore, the ikr, the tofel, they have the same bracha. Ubirchas ha'ikr gam birchas ha'tofel. The bracha of the fish becomes the bracha of the fruit. So if it wasn't there when he made the bracha on the fruit and only showed up afterwards, so then in a chanami he would have to make another bracha. He's not exempted from reciting your own bracha on the fish. But it seems Rav Moshe Feinstein in the Igros Moshe had a different understanding. Rav Moshe was asked about a person who ate salty fish in a quantity less than a kazayas, and then he ate a kazayas of bread to counteract the taste of the fish. Rav Moshe responds that even in this case, one does not recite a bracha rishona of hamotzi or birchas hamazon on the bread, it becomes batel entirely to the fish. This is like what we learned last week in the Shulchan Aruch itself, that when you ate a piece of fish and the bread was sort of just a vehicle for the fish, then the bracha on the fish took care of the bread. Lanias daiti mistaber she'en levarach birchas hamazon. He says you should not bench. And it becomes nullified to the point you don't make any bracha. I mean, benching afterwards is a birchas deraisa. Making hamotzi is only bracha derabbanan. Shalachem k'moshe nifter pas mebirchas hamozin k'she'oichel k'shir memeliach b'birchas born nefashos from rabbis. Just like you don't have to make a birchas hamozin when you ate the bread, and you ate only a small amount of the salted fish, not enough to make a born nefashos even on the fish. And you have less than a shear of bread, which prevents you from having to make a birchas hamozin. Adding the bread and the fish, you have at least a shear for a born nefashos. So that's a nice twist by Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe concludes that one should not recite birchas hamazon afterwards, since the tofel, the bread, is not obligated at all in a bracha when there's not a sufficient amount of the ikr. It would seem from here that Rav Moshe understood differently than the Chazon Ish, that one has no requirement to recite a bracha on the tofel food, right? The Chazon Ish learned in that Tosfos that there wasn't an absent chiyuv. You took care of it with the same bracha of the boy praetz, but it's not like it didn't need a bracha. Okay. What about the order of reciting brachos? Chazal instituted specific guidelines concerning the proper order for reciting bracha rishona when eating multiple foods at the same sitting. That's without bread. In this section, we will learn some of the sources related to these guidelines. The Mishnah Masechta Brachos records a dispute between Rav Yehuda and the Chachamim concerning whether the Shiva Saminim, the 7 species, take precedence over other foods with respect to order of brachos. Mishnah. High lefan of minin harbe. You had multiple different kinds of foods in front of you. Rav Yehuda Omer yesh b'nei min shiva. So there's a pasuk in Parshas Ekev. Eretz chita, Eretz chita gefen v'ri. Eretz. Let me read the pasuk properly.
Psalm. There's Vita song. Is that what he's trying to
Yeah,
do?
that's exactly. Let's see, the Varams.
It's an important pasuk because it
You want the song?
Pain of the remote. Right, yeah.
Videos on it.
Right.
I remember there was a Shem Bash.
Eretz chita usara. Wheat, barley, geffen, grape, te'ena, fig, rimon, pomegranate. Eretz zeit shemen, olive, udvash, which is really tamar, date. Te'ena is fig, rimon is pomegranate. Okay. So if you have one of those sheva meaning, alavu mavarech. And then let's say there were other things there that were not, let's say, had an orange, right, or an apple, which are not part of the sheva meaning. So the bracha that you would make first is on one of these fruits, and not on the regular fruit. No, it's your choice. Whatever you want to eat is what the bracha you make on. The machlokes is when it's the same bracha, like they're all, but now the bracha of chita, certainly if it's ground into bread, is a different bracha. It's motzi lechem in aretz or bori minei mezonos. It's not bori pri ha'etz. Same thing with so'irim. Machlokes, this machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim is when we're talking about equal brachas. Rabbi Yehuda savar min shiva adif. If it's one of the sheva minim, it has preference. Rabbanan savar min chaviv adif. No, it's what you prefer that goes first. Aval b'shein b'chosein shavos. Divra kol mavarach hazeh, b'choiz mavarach hazeh. L'chora, the Gemara doesn't give an answer anymore as to what takes precedence, just as you make a brach on both. Koine ula, one must address two separate cases with respect to the machlokas. The bracha recited on two items when is the same, and when the bracha recited on the two items is not the same. Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim disagree in the Mishnah about case one. Two fruits with the same bracha, one of which is from the Shiva Samini. So, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you would eat the date. You'd make a boy prayer eitz on the date, and then eat the apple. Wouldn't have to make another bracha. But they agree in case two, where the brachas of the two foods are different, that one recites the bracha on one and then the other, and one bracha cannot exempt both foods. With regard to case one, where you have foods that have the same bracha, the Rishonim disagree as to whether to rule like Rav Yehuda or the Chachamim. The Rashba, who, as you notice, as we waltz through Shulchan Aruch, is one of the primary Rishonim that we rely on the most. When Beis Yosef Paskins, he doesn't always include the Rashba, but the Rashba is usually followed. So the Rashba, among others, rules in accordance with Rabbi Yehuda that one recites the bracha upon the type from the Shiva Samini. Rashba, on this brachas Mem Aleph, Elamiu linin halacha mistabra v'adai d'halacha Rabbi Yehuda. The Rashba Rabbeinu Yonah and others explain that although the halacha normally follows the majority opinion, right? Rabbi Yehuda versus the Chachamim are the majority. Why are we poskening like a das yachid? So, in this case, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is supported by the statement later in the Gemara about the correct order of the Shiva Taminim, which is accepted as halacha. They argue that if one must adhere to a certain precedence within the Shiva Taminim, one must certainly recite a bracha upon the Shiva Taminim instead of on a different item with the same bracha. That means they have a precedence. We're going to see that. Let's say you have grape, fig, pomegranate. So there you follow the order in the pasuk, and whichever one comes first in the pasuk is the one you do first. So these Rishonim basically say, if you see that there was a precedence within the pasuk itself, it certainly means that there's a precedence between these 7 things and the other things. I was reading from the footnote at 10. On the other hand, it seems from the Rambam that the halacha follows the Chachamim, and one recites the bracha on the food that one prefers. In Hilchos Brachos, the Rambam says, "Ayu lefan of minin harbe, imayu birchosein shavos, mavarch al achas mehen l'poter sashar." He doesn't say there's a kadima. He recites the bracha on one and paters the rest. Imein birchosein shavos. If the brachas are not the same, mavarch kol achas mehen bracha ru'yu. So then you make bracha on each one. He says, which one you do first is based on your preference. If he has no preference, so the Rambam has an interesting shita. He says, if you don't really care, then you should lean towards the side of making the bracha on the Shava Minim. So since the Rambam writes in the first paragraph that one recites the bracha on one of them, and then writes in the next paragraph that if one has no preference, then he should recite the bracha on the item of the Sheva Saminim, it would seem that the Rambam follows the opinion of the Chachamim. Look at footnote 11. This is the interpretation of the Kesef Mishnah to the Rambam. The Kesef Mishnah, of course, is our friend Rav Yosef Karo, who, is the Beis Yosef, who's the commentary on the Torah, who eventually wrote the Shulchan Aruch. However, other commentaries propose a number of alternative explanations for the Rambam. See, the Bach, the Gra, it's complicated. So give there. Let us now focus on case 2 above, where one has multiple foods with different brachot. According to Ula, both Rav Yehuda and Chachamim agree then that one recites a bracha on this and then a bracha on that. Footnote 12. It should be noted that at least one Amora later in the Gemara disagrees with Ula and holds that Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim disagree in this case as well. Nevertheless, for the sake of simplicity, we will focus on Ula because the halacha follows Ula. However, we surely disagree as to the meaning of this statement. Meaning, what does it mean one recites a bracha on this and then it recites a bracha on that? As we said, it doesn't leave us with a clear formula of which one you do first and which one you do second. Tosfos maintains that one should recite a bracha on the food that one generally prefers, known as chaviv. HaChaviv lo v'achar yivarach al hasheni. Tosfos says you should make the bracha on the food that you like the best. On the other hand, the Tur and the Rosh write that one may recite the bracha first on whichever food he wishes to eat first now, even if he generally prefers the other type. Let's say right now he has a hankering for dates, even though normally he would eat apples. Says the Rosh, Li Nira. It appears to me, the Chaviv Adiv, and that Tosfos said what he prefers should go first. Alma filu echad me'em chaviv yachal levarach al hasheni. Even he normally has a preference, but today he wants the sheni. Kivin shetzarach levarach al hasheni ach mechil zaroshin ein adufus b'chaviv mishum lo shachas zel zer klal. What does it do with the other? So how does the Shulchan Aruch rule concerning these issues? The Shulchan Aruch in Seif 1 first addresses case 1, quotes the majority opinion that rules in accordance with Rav Yehuda. He then addresses case 2 and cites the two opinions of how to understand Ula's ruling. Hailafon of Minei Peros Harbe. In Berchoser Shavos, he has a lot of species in front of him. If they're all the same type of bracha, the Yesh Beineim Nimin Shiva, and there's the Sheva Minim there, Magdim Min Zayin. You make the bracha first on the one that is in the 7 species. Aval B'Shein Chaviv, even if he doesn't like it. As well as he likes the other species. V'mein Beineim Nimin Shiva, Magdim Al Chaviv. If there isn't one of the Sheva Minim in there, there's apples, there's oranges, there's cherries. They're all boy priates. There you could choose whichever one you prefer most. V'mein Berchosein Shavos. Let's say we're talking about boy priadoma and boy priates, boy mezoinos, right? Afilu yesh min shiva, kagon snon v'zayis. So you have a radish, which is an adama, and you have a zayis, which is an eitz. Ezraim sheyirtza yagdim, v'afilei nechavim. He can choose whichever one he wants, even if he doesn't like one of them. No, he has to do the one he likes. His normal preference. So he uses his normal preference.
So his first opinion is the Rambam, and the second opinion is it's not like the Rambam.
Is not
It's the Rambam.
like the Rosh.
The Rosh.
The Rosh also makes reference to a third approach to understanding Ula's statement, that of the Bahag. According to the Bahag, Ula simply means to say that one cannot accept one food with the bracha recited in the other food. However, even Ula agrees that the halacha follows Rav Yehuda, that if one of the two foods is from the Shivat Aminim, such as an olive and a cucumber, one should recite a bracha on the Shivat Aminim food first, and then the bracha on the other food, regardless of which is chaviv. The opinion of the Bahag is mentioned briefly in the continuation of the next year. So we're still left without clear guidance. So the Mishnah Berurah in the next source explains how whether one of the fruits is whole relates to the question of which fruit to use for reciting the bracha. The Mishnah Berurah also writes that the halacha follows the opinion that one should recite a bracha on the fruit that he generally prefers. Magdim min shiva filu chatzi pri v'asharim shleimim. Wow. Even if the sheva minim fruit is not a whole fruit, but it's only half, and the other fruits are full, you make the bracha on the sheva minim. V'im shnei min echad mishiva saminim. If the two minim are both from the sheva minim, or shneim einam min shivas, or they're not from the sheva minim, so magdim masholim, then you should always choose the complete fruit. Even if the other fruit that is a half a fruit you prefer, it's always better to make the bracha on a whole, complete fruit. Here also preference comes in. Even if you have the Sheva species, you've got to desire it. If it's equal, then you make the one on the Sheva minim first. Ayin mashakos Mishnah Berurah b'shem Agra, mashakos b'shem Achronim. The ikar ki yeshoimim hazeh that we really paskin like this Yeshoimim. Shu das Rav Apoiskin. V'gam tefilu das harishona shesfilu mevarch al eze sheyirtz mikom makom halo abreira hu biyado. The Yeshomim seem to say that we don't use the Sheva meaning first, but the one that he prefers should take precedence. Unless it's equal, if he has equal preference for the fruit, then he would do Magdim with the Sheva meaning. In the next Sieve, the Shulchan Aruch cites the opinion of the Rambam brought above in source 30, and understands him to mean that in both case 1 and case 2 of Ula, one recites the bracha on whichever item one prefers at that time, even if one generally prefers the other type. Ula haramba, one species he prefers, and bein shebechosem shavos, bein shenim shavos, whether the brachos are equal or not equal, bein sheyesh b'hem min zayin, bein shein b'hem, whether there's 7 species or not, magdim ab chavivlo. He always does the preference to what he wants. Ba'us at that time. If he doesn't really have a preference, in yesh b'nei meshivas aminim alam v'archil. It's exactly the Rambam. The Taz writes that since there's no definitive ruling given by the Shulchan Aruch here, one may follow whichever opinion one writes. So we talked about the chassan being invited by a shver and having fruits put in front of him, and there was this is a huge pilpul that he has to go through to come out to say that really the Taz says whatever you want.
Half a fruit and kind of the whole fruit, and then he sees what he does. Because that's the only, we seem to have a definitive answer on.
So the inyan halacha ain't kan shum chashash. The b'chol hadrachim yesh lo ma lismo. Basically, the Taz says you have an opinion by whatever you end up doing, it's going to work because someone has quoted your opinion. You have someone to rely on. So according to the Taz, one may choose from any of the opinions mentioned above, both in the case where one recites the same bracha on 2 items, and in the case where one recites different brachas. By contrast, most Achronim maintain that the formulation of Shulchan Aruch, which first rules that the item of Shivas Aminim takes precedence, and only then he cited the ruling of the Rambam as an additional opinion, indicates that the halacha follows Rabbi Yehuda. And this is the approach of the Mishnah Berurah, as well as the Yalkut Yosef. Hayulafon of Mine Peres Harbe, in Brachosem Shavois, V'yesh Benem Min Shiva, Magdim Min Shiva. So right away he says that if they all have the same bracha, and there is a Birchas Aminim first, you say the Birchas Aminim one first. And the fruits of the 7 species go before any other fruit. Even if he likes an apple more than a date. According to the conclusion of Moshe Nachmani, one should recite a bracha on fruit of the Shivat Aminim, even if he prefers the other fruits. Nevertheless, this applies only when both are currently in front of him, and he desires to eat both. If one has an ordinary fruit now, and expects to receive a fruit of the Shivat Aminim at a later time, then one need not wait for it. And one recites the bracha on the ordinary fruit, and it'll pater the fruit that comes later, even though it's a Shivat Aminim. He doesn't have to wait, says the Mishnah Berurah. Okay. Well, what about Hadama and Ha'etz? We saw above, according to Ula, one recites bracha first on whichever item one prefers in case 2, where the items are subject to 2 different brachas. However, this conclusion appears to be contradicted by an earlier passage. Nema Kitanoi. This is brachas lamed tes amud aleph. Nema Kitanoi. Let us say it's machlokes tanoi. Danu trei talmidi de'avu yavu kamei devar kapar. There were 2 students in front of Bar Kapar. Evilu in front of Kruv, they brought a cabbage, which is Adama, the Durmaskin upargiot. They brought plums, which it's a shahakol when they're cooked, and pargiot chicken, which is also shakol. Nosen bar kapora rishus le'echad men levarech. Bar kapora gave rishus to one of the students. Kafetzu baruch ala pargyot. So he made a bracha on the pargyot laglag and ligleg alav chaveru. The other Talmud laughed at him. Kos bar kapor. I'm not angry at the one who made the bracha. Ela alam laglag ani kois. At the guy who made fun. Im chavercha dome kemisha lo tam tam basar ma'olam. Maybe the guy had never eaten chicken before. Atam aliglakta alav. So he had a tremendous desire for it. Chazav v'omar lo alam laglag ani kois elam avarcha ani kois. Then he says, no, I'm not angry at the one who made fun. I'm angry at the one who made the bracha. V'omar im chochma ein kan zikne ein kan. If there's no wisdom here, there's no elder here. Because zikna means zek kana chachma. And I'm sitting here. If you have any shaila as to what bracha to make, you should have asked me. Tana ushneim lo hotziu shnasim. Neither two students survived that year. Because when the Rebbe gets angry, it has ramifications.
Maybe the student thought that the Rebbe was testing him, wanted to see what you would do first.
So he gave him the credit. That's why the answer to the first guy was because some said because that was chaviv on him. But then in the end,
But the second
there's a
one is-
bore priadoma, which probably has preference over the shakol. So I'm here, you should have asked me the question.
Right, but if, I get it, but I understand he was angry with the first one who ridiculed ridiculing the student.
Right.
But to the one who made the bracha and didn't ask, maybe that student thought that the Rebbe was testing him. I guess, the second didn't think so.
So let's see, the passage indicates that one student derided the other because the bracha of Adam on the cabbage should have preceded the bracha of shakol on the other foods. Furthermore, it seems from the Gemara that this is indeed halacha, as Bar Kapor castigated the other student only for causing embarrassment to the first. But Bar Kapor clearly indicates that he agrees that the one who recited the bracha also erred in the order of bracha recited. If so, this appears to contradict the ruling of Ula above, that even if one eats two foods with two different brachas, one may choose to eat whichever food he prefers first. Right? Ula said that if you have two different foods, which have two different brachas, it's based on your choice. Well, this guy obviously wanted chicken, so that's why he made the bracha. Obviously, that's not the halacha. So the Rosh in the next source addresses this issue and suggests that ha'etz and adama are of similar levels in importance, even if ha'etz is somewhat more specific, and one may therefore choose which of them to recite first. Tamra, says the Rosh, the mistama boy pre-eitz choshev and boy pre-adama. Boy pre-eitz is more chaviv, is more choshev than boy pre-adama. Ishum the mevares tfei, it's more specific. The boy pre-adama kol hagadol badama. Boy pre-adama is a very general, anything growing from the ground. Boy pre-eitz is very specific. It has to be from a tree. Although boy pre-eitz mevarach dafka masha gadol be'ilan. Yesh loymar the loy choshev kol kach birchas pre-eitz neged birchas pre-adama. So right now the Rosh is giving us a new insight that there's really not that much difference in Kadima between boy pre-eitz and boy pre-adama. It means there's light years between boy pre-adama and sha'akal. And there's not much daylight between boy pre-eitz and boy pre-adama. The fishakol enum averes klal. Sha'akal is so broad that it's very broad. And that came out from the Gemara. According to the Rosh, then Ula's principle that one recites the bracha on the chaviv item first refers to where one is reciting it's not dama. So the way the Rosh is learning, they're equal. since their status is relatively similar. But if one must recite Adama or Eitz and Shahakol, then you should always recite Shahakol second, as per this story with Bar Kapora, because it's certainly considered a lower level bracha. Tosfos and other Rishonim, though, cite the opinion of the Bahag, that one should in fact recite Ha'etz before Adama, since it's more specific. The Ba'alachas Gedolah says Tosfos, the Boy Eitz Tagdim Lo Boy Adona, whereas we learned it already before, I think, too. Tosfos in the continuation explained the Bahag rules in accordance with the opinion cited later in the Gemara, that Rav Yehuda Chacham disagree as well, concerning the case where two different brachas are cited. Okay. The Shulchan Aruch, how does he paskin? First cites the opinion of the Rosh as the primary ruling, where he didn't make a difference between the two brachos, and then cites the opinion of the Bahag as the Yeshomer. Hevi lefan of davar sheberchoso berper eitz v'davar sheberchoso shakel, boy per eitz kodemes, shei chashuva, shei nepoteres elo davar echad, chen boy per adama v'shakel boy per adama kodemes. So Shulchan Aruch clearly paskins that boy per eitz and boy per adama go before shakel. In hevi lefan of boy per eitz or boy per adama, so he first cites the ruling like the Tosfos or like the Bahag, Ezomem sheyirtze yakdim, v'yeshomim shober peretz kodim, and then he brings the Bahag as the Yeshomim. Right. So the Rosh was the one that said there's no difference. So the Yalkut Yosef writes that the strict halacha follows the first opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, that one may choose whether to recite it. Because remember, there's a rule: stam v'yesh halacha kestam. In the Shulchan Aruch, whenever you have the initial statement and then a yesh omrim, the halacha usually follows the stam. And the Yalkut Yosef is following that rule. But he recommends reciting the bracha of ha'etz first to accommodate the second opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, unless the vegetable is more preferable to him. Okay, that's interesting. So you have a boy pri eitz, boy pri adama. At least the Sfardim, the Yalkut Yosef says you should do boy pri eitz first. However, if you like the vegetable more than you like the fruit, then you can recite the boy pri adama first. And here's a nice chart regarding this whole sugi that we learned tonight. Eating two of Shivat Aminim together. The Gemara in Brachos also discusses which fruit takes precedence when multiple fruits of Shivat Aminim are present. Rav Yosef item Rav Yitzchak, kol hamukdim b'posuk zeh mukdim lebracha. Shnei amar, like we cited, eretz chita so'ara v'gefen u'teinav rimon. Wheat, barley, grape, fig, pomegranate. Then a word comes, eretz, zeit, shemen, udvash. In essence, Rav Yosef says, whatever comes first in the pasuk comes first in the bracha. So Rav Chizr, Rav Nuna, v'yasri b'sudaso. Rav Chizr, Rav Nuna were eating. Aisul kamayu tamri v'rimoini. They brought dates and they brought pomegranate. That's interesting. Date is dvash, okay? Because when the Torah uses the word dvash, it refers to date honey. It's not bee honey. So pomegranate was mentioned fifth. Chita, Saora, Gefen, Tena, Rimon. So it's fifth from the start of the pasuk. And the word eretz stops and starts a new pasuk. Zeit shemen, olive, dvash, which is tamar, which is only the second from the start. So let's see. Shakal Rav Nuna Baruch Tamri Bereisha. So Rav Nuna grabbed the date, even though if you look at the whole pasuk from beginning to end, Rimon appeared before Dvash. So strangely, Rav Nuna picked up the date and made the bracha first. Amalei Rav Chizda. Osfirle Marla Hadam Rav Yosef. Don't you hold Rav Yosef? Rav Yitzchak Kol Hamukdim Pasuk Zekorim with bracha. He thought he was making a mistake because if you look at the bracha, Eretz, Chita, Sarah, Geffen, Tenev, Rimon, Zait, Shemen, Udvash. Rimon comes before Dvash. Omer le Zeh Sheni le Eretz, Zeh Chamishi le Eretz. Like we said, Rimon is the fifth from the word Eretz, and Tamar is the second from the word Eretz. Omer le Man Yavle Nagri de Parzla V'Nishme'echa. He praised him. Who will give me iron legs that we can serve you and constantly hear chidushim from you? It's a tremendous chiddush what Rav Chisda learned. According to the conclusion of the Gemara, the items that are listed by the pasuk closer to the word Eretz should take precedence with regard to which are eaten first. But the second mention of the word Eretz is also considered significant. Therefore, the two items listed after the second Eretz take precedence over those items mentioned third, fourth, and fifth. So the nafkamina, it's not a problem for chita sor v'gefen, but tena, fig, and rimon lose out to olive and date. Actually, yeah, geffen loses out too. They're actually, yeah, because dvash is number 2 and geffen is number 3. Look at the word eretz. Chita sa'ara. So chita sa'ara, and so sa'ara would be equal to dvash, basically. But geffen tenev rimon falls behind date, based on this rule. The Shulchan Aruch rules, according to the Gemara, that the order of priority follows the order of proximity of the items in the pasuk to the word eretz. It takes into account those items mentioned after the second eretz as well. Kol hakodim b'pasuk eretz chita seora kodim levracha. Be'eretz basra hifsik ha'inyan, right? The eretz, the second eretz, starts a new pasuk. Kol hasamuch lo chashuv me'amu'ucha mimenu. Whatever is closer to eretz is more important than the one that's later on. Hilkach tamarim kodim l'novin. He says beferush. You make a bracha on date before you make a bracha on grape, because grape is number 3 after eretz, and tamar is number 2 after eretz. Shezeh sheni le'eretz basra v'zeh gimel eretz kamo. Accordingly, the order of priority is wheat, olives, barley. Let's look at the footnote. According to Morgan Avram and the Taz, olives precede barley in the order of preference. According to Mishnah Brunor Shulchan, that applies only when the barley is eaten raw. Barley is eaten cooked, then the bracha mizonos in it should be recited before the bracha on olives. So if you cook barley in a chulent, and you're not eating with a motzi, you have to make boy min mizonos on it, and then you'd make the bracha boy pre-eitz on the olives.
So barley goes before dates, although they're in the same position if the eretz, because barley is in the first pasuk. I guess that's what you must say. They're both in position.
They're both
too.
in position too.
Yeah.
So, and it could be that's why, and they say even when you eat it raw, it would go above dates. Question is why? Maybe it's more chashuv.
No, that's olives preceding barley. But barley before dates, you have to say, is because the first pasuk it's in 2 positions.
No, but I'm wondering, is it because it gets a better bracha? Boyer menem zoynos. Maybe that bracha has kedima. What Yaakov is bringing out is barley, sa'ira, is in the second position, and dates are in the second position. So why does barley have preference over date? So it could be that because what bracha do you make on barley? You make a mizonos. Okay. The Ramah writes that the placement of grapes 5th in the list applies when eating grapes in their original form. But wine made out of grapes, which warrant a special bracha b'regofen, are considered more significant and take precedence over the others except for grain-based foods. So you see the Zayt Shemen is on the same level as wheat, but that would be a boy pre-eitz. And wheat also would be mizonos, but that's okay because it's one. But wine would get over everything except for if you made a boy made a mizonos. The davka shoich lanovim kamoishen. It's you're eating grapes as a fruit. Aval also men yayin. Shekofei bracha latzmo boy pre-gefen chashuva v'ikudemus levarcha lav tchila. Aval ma'isa kedera mechameshes minei dagan. But a cooked dish made out of grain, ki chashuva yoser mi birchas hayayin. Right? Now remember, we're not talking about, we use yayin to make kiddush, so then there's a kadima because of the kiddush. But we're talking about, you're going out to eat at a fancy restaurant, you're gonna drink wine.
Mhm.
So you would make the birchas bar b'nem zoynois, and certainly a motzi before you'd make the yayin. When it's not when you're not making kiddush over something. Rav Ovadia Yosef writes that although the Ramon rules that wine takes precedence over the other items, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't agree. Therefore, Sephardim may choose to eat whichever item they wish first. The Shulchan Aruch mentions another important caveat to the rule that wheat precedes other items. So this gives another answer to why barley goes ahead of dates. You have to you make a cooked dish with the barley. If you're going to chew wheat, right, raw wheat, so you have to turn the grain-based food into something that you can make bar mitzvah zoynos on. But if you're going to eat it raw, which gets a boy preadama, then it has no kedima anymore. According to Shulchan Aruch, one recites the bracha on wheat and barley first, only when they are prepared as a cooked or baked dish. If one simply chews it raw, then the bracha is adama rather than mizonos. It's not recited before the bracha on other fruits. The Mishnah Berurah qualifies that this ruling concerning raw wheat applies when the fruit over which one recites ha'etz is considered chaviv. Meaning, he prefers fruit over eating the wheat. Remember, we learned boy pri adama and boy pri etz are the same, but that if you have a choice, make the ha'etz first. That's what the Mishnah Berurah is hopping on here. But if they're equal, he says you could still make the boy pri adama over the eights, because we said they're equal. Piskei Tshuva discusses proper placement of the cereal sold in Israel, known as shalva. Shalva is puffed wheat. Now, we used to have this as a child. No, but we grew up eating a puffed wheat. I think Post had a very good sugar crisp? Not sugar.
Sugar Pops.
No, but it was a puff.
It was a pop.
Cocoa
I think it
Puff,
was sugar.
Cocoa Puff,
What?
I think it
Cocoa
was
Puff.
Sugar Pops.
No, but it was sugar crisp. It was like a puffed wheat, right?
Got a new
Yes.
junk cereal.
You're gonna be amazing.
So apparently in Israel, there is this thing called shalva, which is a puffed wheat. It's not baked or cooked. I guess it's puffed. I don't know what that processing is. And apparently, though, the bracha is boy pri adama. Umikan nilmad lemi shalafanav chita tapucha shalva sheberchata beretam of shar peres min shiva, and you have fruits of the sheva minim, or shalom min shiva, or other fruits. Yesh lo lahagdim levarach boy pri adama because of the chashivas of chita, alachita tapucha, the blown up puffed wheat. Elam ken chaviv olav yoser echad mishar peres shalafan, unless he clearly has a preference for another fruit. Okay, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu in the Vizos HaBracha suggests another rule concerning the order of priority. In his opinion, fruits that are grown in Eretz Yisrael take precedence over fruits grown in Chutz La'aretz. If there are no Shivat meaning present that were grown in Chutz La'aretz. Wow. So that means if you have dates from India and an apple from Israel, or a navel orange from Haifa, you would make the sheva meat, you'd make the bracha on the date. Thus he maintains that one who's about to eat an orange growing in Israel and an apple growing in the United States should recite the bracha v'aitz on the orange. That's nice. It should be noted that even some fruits sold in Israel are grown in the diaspora. For example, many apples sold in supermarkets in Israel are not necessarily grown there. but rather in other countries around the world. Therefore, one should be careful to determine the country of origin of one's fruit to apply this fruit of Rav Eliyahu. We will conclude this section with a complete, concise order of brachos as presented in V'zosa Bracha based upon the rulings of the Mishnah Berurah. So, Amotzi lechem min haaretz alechem asui mehi minim dagon. So first, the top bracha is Amotzi, on bread made of the 5 grains. And you have an order: chita, wheat; saora, barley; kusmin, which is spelt; shifon, rye; shibolet, shual, oat. So, if you have different breads, there's a kadima. Then, boy name is zoynois. Al tafshil mehemine dogon. You have a cooked dish made out of grain. Let's say oatmeal or cream of wheat. It's not hamotzi, but you get it boy name is zoynois. Again, chita, which would be cream of wheat. Saora, which is, do we have cooked barley breakfast things? I don't know about that. But kusmin, some kind of spelt, or shifon, rye, or oat. We certainly eat a lot of cooked oats. Then, birchas boy menonis al oires. Boy menonis on rice is less of madrega. Then boy prea gefen for wine. Then boy prea tzish lagdim avarch al zayna minim kaseder zeh. Zayit, right? Olive, tamar, date, anav, grape, te'ena, fig, rimon, and then boy prea dom, and then shahakal al maichel mashke. Very nice list.
Didn't we say the Burpee Geffen goes before them?
Yeah. So number Dalet is boy prea gefen.
You mean that it's great, with more significant and takes precedence over the others except the grain-based foods. Okay, so why does it go after
Yeah.
rice?
Because it's grain based. You have it's boy name is zoynois.
The rice isn't grain. You make zonas, but it's not grain. I guess he uses the wrong term. He means burn in the zonas.
Boy name is zoynois. Let's conclude the final mashava. We have seen in this year how the principles of ikar v'tofel within Hilchos Brachos help to determine the correct bracha to be recited. Within the world of machshava and the rest of life as well, one often needs to recognize the difference between what is primary and what is secondary. This point is expressed in explaining a passage in Mesilas HaYesharim. Mesilas Yesharim was written by the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato, who the Gra felt was a tzaddik v'kadosh. He lived like 1750, about that time. And many of us in yeshiva, when we were first introduced to Musar, one of the first form we were taught was Mesilas Yesharim. So in his explanation, he basically goes through the Baraisa of Pinchas ben Yair, who says that there are levels to reach Nevuah. And you have to have Nikiyas, cleanliness, and you have to have various attributes. And one of the attributes is Midas Chasidus. Vasher kvar yechashvu shechasidut talui b'divrei hakol, b'divrei hevel. Some people think you're a chassid by just reciting nonsense words, or dvorim neged hachseichel, or actions that also go against logic. V'adei hanechona. V'yaminu eyos kol hachasidus toli rak b'amiris bakashos rabbos, or reciting tfilos, confessions, vidium gdolim, uvekios, crying, shtachaviyos gdolos, bowing, v'sigufim azorim, afflicting yourself, sticking your foot into snow, sheyamit b'em adam esatzmo, ketfilos hakerach, like people jumping into an ice-cold mikveh, v'ashelig v'chayotze b'dvar ma'elu. V'nei yadu, these people didn't realize, ki afal pi shektzas dvarim eila tzrichim l'balei tshuva. Sometimes the Baalei Tshuva needs to go through these things. And some people who were born from and are already from, or let's say they're already Shomer Torah mitzvahs, some of these things are also good for those people. But Hinei lo aleila nosad hachasidus klal. The concept of Chasidus is not based on these things. כי מה טוב שבמנהגים האלה הוא רואי להתלוס את החסידות. True Hasidut is going to be something else. These things will accompany true Hasidut, but the true Hasidut is not based on that. אחת העבודות הגדולות במהלך החיים היא להבדיל בין עיקר לטפל. And he's going to tell us what leads to this, to Hasidut. That life is to recognize things that are primary and secondary. אם לא יודעים לעשות את ההבחנה האחידה הזו, if people don't know how to separate primary and secondary, אפשר בטעות לבלבל ביניהם. The person will convert the ikar into the tofel. להפוך את העיקר לטופל ולטופל לאחר. אם למשל, יש מטלות שעליי לבצע. I have things to do. אך אני דוחה אותם. I push them off. ומשחק במקום לעשות, and I just waste my time. I engage in recreation rather than doing the thing I'm supposed to do. Then איני יודע להבחין בין העיקר לטופל. Then I clearly show I don't have the ability to separate between what is primary and secondary. Hatofel הוא לאו דווקא רע. It's not that the secondary is a bad thing. אבל אם הוא דוחה את העיקר הוא שלילי. If the secondary thing causes him to push away the primary thing, then it becomes negative. התפקיד של התופל הוא להיות בצד ולא במרכז. The tofel should be on the side, not at the center. הוא נטפל על העיקר. It's secondary to the primary, ומתלווה אליו, and accompanies it. גם בעבודות השם יש עיקר ותפל. In serving Hashem, the same thing. התופל במידת החסידות. The secondary activity within trying to be a chassid, למashal, הוא הצדדים החיצוניים שלו. All these external things. זה יכול להתבטל באמירת מזמורים ובקשות. Some people might say a lot of tehillim, בצעקות או בבכי, crying, בהתנדבות בצורה יוצא דופן, tremendous volunteering spirit, or בזמן התפילה, או בתניות, davening, fasting, כמו צום ותניס דיבור. התנהגות הזו מושכת אנשים רבים. A lot of people are pulled to these type of activities. וסוחבת אותם להימשך לחסידות. And it even attracts people to the Hasidic movement. אך זוהי חסידות ריקה. It's an empty חסידות. חסידות שאינה אמיתית. התנהגות כזו דומה לקליפת ביצה שאין אפרוח בתוכה. It's like an eggshell without recognizing that there's an egg inside. אין זה סותר את זה שלפעמים נראה מעשים כאלה אצל החסידים האמיתיים. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not a chassid. We still see a lot of these activities in true Hasidim. אבל הם יבואו רק בתור תופל. All these other actions will only be secondary to the true chassid. כמישהו צדדי המתלווה לחסידות האמיתית. Whenever we apply the rules of ikar v'tofel to the brachos that we recite, we should remember that we must also correctly identify which activities and values are the ikar and which are the tofel in the rest of our lives as well. May we all succeed in discovering and focusing on the true ikar in our lives, properly serving Hashem without being overly distracted by the many different elements of tofel, as important as they may be. Yishkoch everybody, volume 14. Hadalach, volume 14. So I will send an email tonight to Neil Bodner, who's my contact there, and finding out whether it's on its way. And I'll send an email out to everybody so we can start distributing them if they arrive. Hopefully we'll start volume 15 next week.